simply ignoring those public health orders and sparking outrage among the neighborhood. They've contacted the city and the LAPD, but those late night parties are not letting up. In fact, earlier this month, Mayor Eric Garcetti referred to the growing problem of party houses as nightclubs in the hills, as he authorized the city to shut off water and power at those homes. But that hasn't happened in Encino, that popular house for TikTok influencers. Now we go to our Natalie Brunel, who's live in the neighborhood with more. Natalie.
Yeah, good evening, Kate. Well, it's pretty quiet here right now, but each time I've been here this weekend, there's been a steady stream of young people going in and out of the house. One of them just got dropped off in a lift. Another two came out a few minutes ago and said there's not going to be a party here tonight. But the residents on this street say it is an ongoing occurrence. They say this house has become a nuisance, and they're worried that a tragedy has to happen for someone in the city to take this seriously and shut the parties and the gatherings here down for good. Every day feels like a losing battle for Jeff Oken and his neighbors, who say their street has been taken over by a TikTok party house.
The entire situation makes me very frustrated. I feel very powerless.
Jeff and his wife live directly next door and say night and day they're dealing with large gatherings, loud pool parties, and non-permitted film shoots. Cars constantly speed up and down outside their home, and their Nest Cam captured the party spilling into the street. The partygoers drinking, getting intimate, and even defecating.
The girl squats in the street and starts to pee, so that's always good. And then they had a party literally for 9 consecutive nights that went from 10:30 to literally 7:38 in the morning.
This is not the worst of it.
Marcia Scully has lived on the street for 50 years and said now every morning she finds used condoms outside her house.
We're prisoners in our home. We're in our 70s. We don't want COVID. It's a disappointment in our city leaders. We expect to be heard.
But she and Jeff say they're not. They've been calling police, their councilman, Paul Koretz, the mayor's office, health department, and they're also trying to help the property owner attempt an eviction. So far, they say nothing's worked, and they feel like officials punt the responsibility.
The eviction attorney gives them health violations that the police won't enforce. The police are having a battle with the city government over defunding. The councilman's office gave us a guy who told us to give it to the police. They're just going in giant circles.
Councilman Koretz was not available for an interview, but a rep from his office said he is doing everything he can to help the residents and sent this letter to the LAPD asking for full enforcement and zero tolerance on house parties. LAPD told Spectrum News it has responded to 2 incidents at the party house address and that no large gathering or party was observed when they arrived.
The days of being proactive are gone.
Retired LAPD detective Moses Castillo says he's not surprised police aren't breaking up this or other party houses in LA and says to look no further than the defund police movement.
The officers have heard the message. Okay, you want us to have hands off and let the social workers or let the non-sworn individuals go out there and do the enforcement, code enforcement. That's what it's going to be.
Castillo spent 30 years in the LAPD and remains close with many active members. He said police are now less likely to get involved unless it's a so-called Part 1 crime, like a robbery, rape, or murder.
Basically are saying take it until, a tragedy happens, which is going to happen here.
Jeff and Marcia have tried to reason with the social media influencers and manager who run the parties inside and post videos like this to TikTok and Instagram of the gatherings. But they say the response has been disrespectful.
He basically just called us names and told us to go do ourselves.
We tried to reach out to them as well, but they didn't want to talk or share their side. When we visited the house, one of the young men seen in the videos came out at one point, and when asked about the parties, said there had been none, and that, quote, we're just kids. Jeff said he's all for them getting followers and monetizing their online personalities, just not destroying his sense of peace at home.
And we're for them. We want them to get sponsors and make gazillions of dollars, but we're not for them doing it at everybody's expense.
And he hopes that instead of feeling caught between the police and his city government, that everyone can soon come together to find a peaceful end to this party. Now, the residents here say that they've been pushing to get the city to turn off the water and power, but they haven't had that happen yet. They're not sure why. As for Jeff, who you heard from in the story, he worries that even that won't work because he thinks that the partygoers would just bring in generators to keep things going. So as you can imagine, a lot of frustration here, and this problem remains unresolved. Kate?
So what's a neighbor to do? What are they going to do next?
Yeah, well, they feel pretty helpless, right? They say that the property owner has been trying to evict the people here, especially because they've stopped paying rent, but it's been very difficult to evict them in the middle of a pandemic. So the residents now say they're even considering a lawsuit against the city for not taking action and making them feel so unsafe.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Natalie, for that. You know, on an interesting note, I had reached out to a realtor who was helping parents try to rent houses to set up schools, and they were getting turned down because of liability issues. So this is a fascinating house. Thank you so much for covering it. All right, well, coming up, Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia